Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts. And we are here today with part 3 of my sayings and aphorisms and idioms and words to live by. And funny thing, of all the things, all the documents I forgot to pull up, I forgot to pull up that one. So first, we're going to go over the testimonials I have today. Couple of good testimonials about kids, and then I'll go and find the document live on air, and we'll head into it as we usually do. So yeah, here we go. So the first testimonial today, and these are as I always tell people, these are on the Love Your Liver network. It's private. I don't do what's the word, initials. I don't do names on here because that's just medical stuff that is only going to get me in trouble. Somebody's going to try to get me in trouble for it, so I just don't show it. But if you ever wanted to find these and see that they're legit, you can always go into the Love Your Liver program and find it. So here we go. Testimonial number 1. Oh, thanks, Joe. Joe put up the link. I wanted to thank Dr. Smith for all his thought, leadership, and commitment to humanity thriving. My 7-year-old has suffered from febrile seizures. Those are seizures associated with fever. Since a round of pokies at 9 months, and I truly believe the low vitamin A approach has been wonderful for us. We started it along with some nutrition detective supplements about a year ago, and he hasn't had one, as in the febrile seizures, despite a couple of high fevers in that time. Cleared up quite a bit of mommy's ongoing skin blemish issues as well. Keystone Minerals for the win, big time. So if you don't know, Keystone Minerals is one of our products. I will also add that stuff about germ theory resonated so much with me because my son would get super sick and have a seizure like clockwork every year. One in late fall, once in February. So the idea of contagions or getting seasonal flu just never made sense to me, especially since the rest of us in the house were not following this pattern at all. Since starting the low vitamin A approach and majorly re-emphasizing meat as part of the diet, Malcolm got sick February 2024 as normal, but no seizure, and then got sick very mildly, very, very mildly in October, no seizure again, and has had one high fever in June, but no seizure. The number of colds, etc., also greatly reduced. He seems to be growing and developing brain-wise at such a quick clip. I just feel so great about this approach. So, thank you for that testimonial. Can kids do the low vitamin A diet? Yes, they don't. Nobody needs vitamin A, not kids, not pregnant moms, not anybody. So yes, this diet can benefit everyone. If you don't know, I have another testimonial on a video on here, Joe. You might find it. It's a seizures testimonial from a mom. And then we have the whole live stream episode dedicated to epilepsy and seizures and how they fit into toxic bile theory and vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity and all the deficiencies that we talk about over and over again. So several videos. Like I said, one is a testimonial from a mom. And I think at that time we did that testimonial, her child had been free of seizures for 1.5 years, I believe it was. Or was it maybe just 1 year? But I'm sure they're continuing those results today because this is not a quick fix. If you keep now, let me just say something. If you go back to doing what you were doing before, right? Like somebody say, well, will vitamin A fix all my problems forever? And then if I get low enough, can I eat it again? I mean, can you? Sure. Could you be an alcoholic and stop drinking and then start drinking again and cause yourself all the same problems again? Yeah, you can cause the same problems all again. Most of us who have seen, and understand things about alcohol and drugs and what happens to people who go back on them is that when people, let's say they're a raging alcoholic and they quit and then they go back to it, or you have somebody who's a heroin junkie and they go back to it, they often aren't around very long after that because for whatever reason, when they go back to it, they either don't tolerate it as well, or their tolerance is down, or their liver's already shot and it didn't really get that much better while they quit because they didn't do anything to help it. And then they die fairly quickly after that. Or they realize, oh crap, I have to get out of this because this is that bad for me. So could people with vitamin A, we're seeing people as they get off of vitamin A and then they have it again, they react more strongly to it when they put it back in than they used to. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, what it means is their body is telling them very quickly, this is not good for you. It never was good for you. But were you able to deny and delude yourself that it was for whatever reason before? Because you liked the taste of it, or you convinced yourself you liked it, or whatever, or you listened to Weston Price nonsense, or whatever it was. Anyway, so yeah, you can always cause the problem again. But the thing is once you know what causes the problem, then you are truly empowered to not do it to yourself again, and you know what's causing the problem. So for those of you out there who, let's say, are slipping up on the diet, and you're like, my problems are kind of creeping back. Well, you did that. Nobody else did that. You chose to do that. Doc, it hurts when I bang my head against this wall. Well, stop banging your head against the wall, and maybe your head will stop hurting, right? Hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that. If it caused you a problem before, it's going to cause you a problem again. So, okay. Testimonial 2, another child testimonial. This week I was being nostalgic and decided to look back at old videos and pictures of my kids. Looking back, hello, Beth. Nice to have you here. Looking back, it's like I have a completely different kid, or I have completely different kids since implementing the Love Your Liver approach. We were all very toxic with copper and vitamin A. We started the program when my daughter was 1.5, and I saw videos of her old meltdowns. She has always been strong-willed and still has that determined attitude, but now carries it out with kindness, control, and just the right amount of assertiveness. I can honestly say she has not had one meltdown like she used to in at least 2 years. She doesn't kick and scream when she's upset or make a scene. She will cry, and I can visibly see her controlling herself better so that she conveys herself in a much better way. I say this with experience because she has my personality, and I was the one having these meltdowns constantly at her age. I was a very difficult child and always let emotions lead me. I did this at least until I was 10, and she's only 5. It's the coolest thing seeing her have control over that at such a young age. And as an added bonus, Love Your Liver has helped me be a better mom. I love the changes I've made as a parent, and I'm turning into the mom my kids need and deserve. So yes, this is very important. No matter how many techniques you learn, mental, emotional, whatever, if you are toxic, that will always affect what you're thinking. So a lot of you may have worked on things. Sorry, my phone just buzzed. Everybody knows, like, people who have tried to do the work, or they're doing the work, and let's say you have the same mental emotional issue pop up over and over, maybe with slightly different flavors, but it's the same issue over and over, and you're like, you learn the tools to deal with it, but the problem keeps coming back up. So you've got the tools. Do the tools work? Did they work for other people? Yes. Are they working for you? Possibly not. What is the problem? The problem is that your brain chemistry is not working right. And so your brain chemistry, it's kind of like when you wake up in the middle of the night and let's say you had a bile dump or you had a blood sugar drop, and all of a sudden your brain, like, you weren't thinking about anything, but all of a sudden your brain finds something to grab onto and be anxious about it. Or it's almost like your brain creates something to be anxious about because the chemistry in your brain says we're going to be anxious. So whatever thought we can grab, we're going to be anxious about it. That's your chemistry taking over. So I'm actually, speaking of Beth, I get to talk to Beth tomorrow. I'm doing some of her stuff with her tomorrow. We do need to do the work. We need to do there's the physical part of it, and then there's the mental, emotional, spiritual part of it. And really, things only come together for the long term when you're doing both of them. Now, if you have, let's say, trauma issues from a young age or whatever there happened, and then you're toxic, the toxicity is going to make the trauma worse. Like, it's going to come up, it's going to get more aggravated, it's going to come out in more different ways. And when you get excessively toxic, it's going to get really bad. Now, let's say you fix the toxicity enough. The trauma didn't go away. It may not be like this testimonial. The meltdowns in the child may not be as bad, or they may be much more under control. They're still kind of there. But as you go out and then you work on gaining the tools, or maybe you already gained the tools, and now you're less toxic, and the tools seem to start working when they didn't work before. Okay? That is what fixing toxicity can do. Maybe toxicity fixes, like, you may have anxiety or depression issues or whatever, and fixing the toxicity completely fixes it. Maybe you didn't have an underlying condition and it was just toxicity. Well, then you fixed it. If you fix the toxicity and then you look at, oh yeah, Joe posted the how the childhood traumas affect your liver. So it's actually been shown that childhood traumas can negatively affect your liver. Oh wait, but the liver's part of this whole toxicity thing. So you can fix it from both angles, right? But there's nobody who would know. I don't think somebody who would be like, well, if you know somebody's horribly lead toxic, that just changing their mindset is going to fix the lead toxicity. So we want to work on both. But the thing is, you fix the toxicity, and then the issues that you have, because you're able to think more clearly about them, become more crystal clear to you. So then you can say, oh, wow, maybe I do have an issue. Maybe I could go work on this. And then you work on it, and the work actually works because you don't have the chemistry fighting you out of it. Okay? So anyway, yeah. Beth's looking forward to our session. I am too, Beth. So let's get into it. Joe gave me the link here. Let me open that up. Let me share this tab instead. There we go. So let me find where we left off. I think we're on. Yes, we are right here. Okay. Joe, let me check. You got it? Yeah, you got it. Okay, cool. So silent liver disease. If you go look up silent liver disease is showing up more and more in the literature and in popular media and stuff like that. The reason they call it silent liver disease is because they're terrible at finding it. They don't find it until it's too late. You guys may know somebody who, let's say, their labs were fine, and let's say they're like, I get my labs done every 6 months and everything's fine and my liver's fine and and all of a sudden you find out that they've got like liver cancer or something like that, something really bad, and they're like, but I can't believe it didn't show up in my labs. Well, that's because not everything shows up right in the way you want it to, and their ranges are set to hold 95% of the people's results who come in. So that means this is very, very important to know about normal lab ranges, folks. If you go and you say, well, I was normal on vitamin A, I was normal on liver enzymes, the definition of the reference range, they call it the reference range. They don't call it the normal range. Most people call it a normal range, but that's not what the labs call it. The labs call it the reference range. The reference range is, by definition, 95% of the people who go into that lab and take the test. 95% of the people who go into the lab and take the test are going to be, by definition, put into the quote-unquote normal range, what people call the normal range. There's only 2.5% high and 2.5% low. That's it. So by the time you're way out here, 2.5% low or 2.5% high, you're way out. The range has nothing to do with health. It has to do with statistics, because doctors are too lazy and they don't have the tools to fix you. So they only want to have to deal with it if it's way out of bounds. Okay. I mean, how much fatty liver is out there, and they barely catch it. They're just not good at it. This is why they say a tumor has been developing for 10 years before they find it. Is that silent cancer disease? Because it was going on for 10 years and they just weren't good enough to find it. So maybe their ranges suck. Maybe this is why when people go, well, how am I going to do a lab test that tells me if I have vitamin A toxicity or not? You don't get to. Liver biopsy, and nobody will do it for you. I'm not advising you get it done. Nobody will do it for you. So if you want a definitive test, so people say, well, then what do I do? You do the program and you get better, and then you realize that you had vitamin A toxicity the whole time and you fixed it, and that's why you're getting better. That's it. Now, if you have high vitamin A, high serum retinol on a test, you're really high in your liver. You're guaranteed high in your liver. Guaranteed. Like if you have it high in the blood, you're guaranteed high in the liver. Okay. If it's low, it simply means it's not in your blood, but you could be having tons and tons of it in the liver. This is in the research multiple times. So this is why when people want to run a blood test for vitamin A and they're like, but I'm normal or I'm low normal, I'm fine. No, you're not. You're absolutely not. And the research says this. And then when your level, let's say your normal level, and you go on a low vitamin A diet and it stays very similar for like 3 years. This is in the research too. People on very, very low vitamin A diets, very restrictive diets, their vitamin A would stay the same for at least 2 years. They kind of gave up on the study after 2 years. They're like, well, their vitamin A is not dropping. Gosh. And why did they not do more studies on it? Because they said, oh, well, when it drops so suddenly, and we're worried about causing them vitamin A deficiency, so we're just not going to study it. There's a reason why vitamin A science sucks so bad, folks. It's on purpose, I believe. It's on purpose. So next one. Our stomach is designed for acid. It is. Your stomach is absolutely designed for acid. So why would acid, too much acid, be a problem in your stomach? Your stomach is the only thing that can handle the acid. You know what's not designed for acid? Your esophagus. You know what's not designed for bile? Your stomach and your esophagus. So the idea that you have like hyperacidity in your stomach, if you have hyperacidity, I mean, you're going to have acid in your stomach. You're supposed to have acid in your stomach. If you don't have acid, you don't break down your meat well. You don't protect yourself from food poisoning type stuff on the meat itself, and you don't get to absorb your B12, which is questionable to begin with, but I'm just going to add that in there. So if you don't have acid in your stomach, you're not doing these things. So if you're taking antacids or you're taking PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, which shut down your acid production and your bile production, your digestion sucks. And this is why the long-term data with taking antacids regularly and taking PPIs regularly looks so bad in terms of it causes tons of disease. Okay? Now, about acid reflux, you need to watch my GERD episode, my bile reflux episode, because GERD is one of two things. It's generally, so like you wouldn't notice if you had acid in your stomach. You're supposed to. Acid, in theory, this is the way they explain it. Acid helps close your lower esophageal sphincter, the thing that would keep whatever's in your stomach from going up into your esophagus. Now, what I was taught in naturopathic school was that this lower esophageal sphincter, the trigger for it to close was enough acid. So if your stomach acid went down, this would not close. It would stay open. Well, so there's always going to be bile in what they call GERD. Because remember, they're just saying gastroesophageal reflux disease. They're not saying acid reflux. They're saying gastroesophageal reflux disease. Funny that they made it non-specific. If you have reflux, you have bile in your stomach and in your esophagus, guaranteed, basically. There may or may not be acid there. Acid plus bile going outside of the stomach is extra bad. Bile in the stomach and going outside the stomach is bad, but bile plus acid is even worse. So remember how I said that you need enough acid to close the sphincter? That's what we were taught. Well, they didn't understand bile, because what is bile overall? Bile is alkaline. So if you put too much alkalinity in the stomach, it makes the stomach too alkaline. It would also not trigger this to shut, because it's not that there's not enough acid, it's that there's too much base, too much alkalinity. That's why. So anyway, don't get into the whole like your stomach's designed for your stomach has too much acid. No, you have too much acid in the wrong place. If you even have that, it might just be bile. Okay. So Joe posted the heartburn episode. You guys don't post too many super chats because I didn't get through all this before. So just don't post a bunch of them more. We'll just have to move them to next week because I definitely have times I have to be done by today. Okay. Slow and steady wins the race, or kind of the tortoise and the hare kind of saying. How do I explain this? All the people out there, all of you folks in the chat or who are watching this later, those of you who have purposely pushed too hard and kicked your own butt and then realized, oh, Dr. Smith was right. I can push detox so hard that I feel bad. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should go slower and have a nice quality of life while this whole process is going on, rather than making myself suffer more than I started. This is just very simple. This is not a race. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So you want to plan on it being a marathon. Don't come in here being like, I'm going to fix myself faster than anybody else, because then what those people usually do is they do things that aren't on the program. And they don't necessarily ask me if I've experimented with that before, because I probably have, and there's probably a reason I don't use it. And then they find out that they screwed up. And that, oh, they didn't speed up detox. They actually slowed it down. And that's why they felt better at the start. And then that's why they're stuck later. Okay. Do not email Julie. Folks, this is, I don't know how many, we have gotten more popular now, and we're getting more business. And Julie used to say that when she would wake up in the morning, she would have 100 emails in her inbox, which is great. We're glad we have people contacting us. People tend to, these days, not read instructions, not watch videos we send them, not do these things, and they want it to all be spoon-fed to them, or they want to know secret info that they think we're not going to tell anybody else, and we'll just tell them. Just don't email Julie and waste her time. Like, if there's something that you think we would announce, like if we have a new product, Glenn, eggs are a no. They're a hard no. You need to read my Twitter thread on eggs. So if somebody wants to link my Twitter thread on eggs are a hard no for multiple reasons that I'm not going to go into today. And the egg cells who are out there pushing eggs for vitamin A detox are sadly not only bitter and angry because their livers still suck, they're just wrong. Boy, are they bitter. Gosh, it's like they haven't gotten the benefit of the low vitamin A diet because they keep insisting on eating like the most bioavailable forms of carotenoids and vitamin A, including choline, phosphatidylcholine, lecithin, that would go into their liver as quickly as possible. So, yeah, just look, Julie and I, we put out more information on our web pages of like specifics of things. Like if you're going to buy a package, there is tons of information on those pages, and people don't read them. And then Julie will tell them, if Julie sends you an email and she says, read this, and you don't read it, and then you're emailing her, you're part of this problem of why we're saying don't email Julie. If I talk about a new product, we'll let everybody, we don't have like early release lists. Don't bother Julie with stuff that we're going to come out and tell you anyway. Okay? So, this one's just saying it funny. It's just, what a coinky-dink. That's just me pronouncing the word coincidence well when people start observing that certain things make them feel better short-term and worse long-term, or things that have caused people to get unhealthier in general. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is what Dr. Smith said. It's like, oh my gosh, right now. What a coinky-dink, right? Brian Johnson, the Don't Die guy, apparently his fatty liver score on one of the tests he does has gone up something like 76% in the last month. And people are starting to notice on his live streams or on his podcast visits and whatever he does online, I don't watch him, that he seems to be gaining body fat and he seems to be starting to lose his hair more. What did I post about this on Twitter? I said, this is, I have this saying, another one, I don't know if it's on here, but it's like it's like a siege. Like my work, for the people who don't believe in it, it's like a siege. Y'all keep doing what you're doing. It's going to bite you in the ass. And all I have to do is wait it out. All I have to do is wait. The toxins do the work. I don't have to convince you that they're toxic. They convince your body that they're toxic. And then eventually you find out. And I'm sitting back here kind of chuckling and smiling, going, yeah, told you so. Boy, that sucks, doesn't it? So he eats a diet. He's microdosing Accutane, and they're wondering why his fatty liver score is going up. He's eating more polyphenols than just about anybody ever. He's hardly eating any protein. How could we ruin the liver? You can cause cholestasis in the liver, toxic leaky bile, by simply eating an inadequate protein diet. High sugar or high fructose diet will cause cholestasis. A high fat diet will cause cholestasis. A low protein diet will cause cholestasis. So he's got two of those going on. So that's why it's a quinky dink that he's doing all these things, and yet now, before everything looked great. I mean, besides the fact that, is he a vampire? He's super pale. He doesn't go out in the sun. He took blood from his son, transferred it into him, and his body temperature is 93.4 degrees, and he sleeps like a dead person. It sounds like a vampire to me. So, anyway. Oh, yeah, his diet is like aldehyde city. Yes, absolutely. This next one is just another silly pronunciation, voilé. Instead of voila, it's voilé. So I just like saying some of these words silly sometimes. Now, this was a fun one. So this is from what is the show it was from? I actually didn't watch the show. I just heard about this saying. Keto is absolutely a hard no. No humans are designed for a high-fat diet, Glenn. I'm sorry. You're coming here. If you're coming here to learn, you're going to find out that everything you thought was correct long-term for the liver is basically wrong. This is why keto is fading in popularity, is because long-term people are figuring out that it made them worse. So yeah, humans are not designed for high fat, and high fat causes liver and gallbladder issues, which is why everybody knows that if you have a gallbladder or a liver problem in the hospital, they put you on a low-fat diet so you don't flare it all up again. Not that the hospital diets are good, but at least they know that high fat will make the problem worse. So this was somebody, if anybody remembers what show this was, I forget what it was. If you come at the king, you better not miss. We had a group of Peters and ex-Peters coming into the our network and some of Kelsey's Telegram group, and they were trying to cause problems. And then they were bitching about me in my own house, in my network. And they got so upset when we figured out who they all were and we kicked them all out. And now there's one guy out there. I won't say who he is or where he posts, but he's just basically copying my supplements and copying my approaches while disparaging me. Now, I don't put up with that. They came after the king. They missed. They all got removed. And they would probably be found out again if they tried to do stupid shit like that again. So they can try. They just make themselves look bitter and childish. That's all. But yeah, there are people on Grant's forum who openly say that they think Grant has mental health issues, and they disparage Grant, the man who owns the forum. Now, for whatever reason, Grant lets this happen. I don't know why, but he does. I wouldn't let it happen. I don't let it happen. So if you are in the Love Your Liver program and you decide to say things that you would not say to me or my staff or my people in my own house, you can expect to leave. You will be made to leave, because I'm here to help people get better. I'm not here to entertain your opinions and your biases and your theories when you don't have a practice, you haven't been doing this for 18 years, and you just want to tell me what the latest thing is you learned on the internet. So, yeah. Retribution will be swift. Okay. You can't fix stupid. Even I can't fix stupid. The saying you can't fix stupid is very, very true. Now, will vitamin A make people smarter? I mean, it could make them a little bit smarter, but you can't take a lawnmower engine and turn it into a Porsche. Like, you can make a low power brain work better, but it will still be a low power brain in the end. That doesn't mean you turn it into a turbocharged thing. Okay? So, like, just like I was talking earlier about the mental emotional issues, like, we can fix the physical part of it. Then there's the work that you got to do so that you can think about things correctly. Stupid is simply, I mean, a lot of intelligence is genetic. Regardless of whether people want to think it's not, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Genetic is absolutely tied. I mean, intelligence is absolutely tied to genetics. So, yes, James said strong boundaries keep the place clean and livable. That's what I'm after. And that's why in the Love Your Liver Network, you're not going to find all the BS that you find on Facebook, on Instagram, and people just let these folks who it seems their only goal in life is just to go in and talk smack and to tell everybody else how smart they are while how dumb they are. We just don't tolerate it. You can do that all over the entire internet. You're not going to do it in my house. Okay, this is an important one. The body always chooses the slow death over the quick death. What does this mean? People are like, why would the body store toxins? That doesn't make any sense. What else is it going to do with them while they're inside of you? Is it going to let them float around in the blood and damage your heart? Possibly cause a heart attack, damage your brain, cause a stroke? No, your body says they're in the system. The assumption is they're in the system. Your body then has two choices. It can leave them floating around until it can deal with them. Sometimes people think that the liver has this unlimited capacity to clean you out. No, that's completely wrong. So the liver can only do, just like you, like if you're working on, work stuff, you can only work on so much stuff at a time. And while the other stuff that you can't work on is building up. Okay? So if that work is building up, what are you going to do with it? Like, you could just stack it here, but your body has these toxins. So your body's either going to let them float around in the blood, and it could cause the quick death, or it says, I can store these in the liver, in the body fat, in the bones. Like, where does your body store lead and some cadmium? In the bones. Cadmium, especially in the kidneys. So you can store these things other places. Your body will put them other places, because then the hope is that they're out of the bloodstream so it doesn't cause you the quick death. And that hopefully over time, you'll stop putting all the poisons in, or you'll stop being exposed to the poisons. And then your body can pull them out and get rid of them so that then you avoid, you minimize death in general, but also you're choosing the slow death, which is the toxins stored in your system. So whenever you think of why does the body do this, we must assume that the body is intelligent first, that your body knows better what to do with these things than anything else. And that another thing that goes along with that is that pharmaceutical medicine does the opposite of what your body wants to do. If your body's hot, they try to make it cold. If your body's wet, they try to make it dry. They do the exact opposite of what your body is doing. So it is the exact opposite of intelligence. Can you feel better from that? Sure. Could your symptoms get better? Sure. Might you need some of these things in a life or death situation? Like, let's say you're having diarrhea so bad you're going to get dehydration and die. They might need to shut that down. There can be things that spiral out of control, but if you're just like having a chronic disease that sucks on a daily basis, but it's not killing you, their meds are not going to help you. They're going to make it worse over time. They may relieve symptoms. That doesn't mean they fix anything. Okay, so the slow death is what the body chooses to avoid the quick death. Okay? Bile is the liver's poop. This is the best way to think of it, right? You need to, people will be like, why do you not like bile? Why are you trying to get rid of bile? And I'm like, you don't understand anything about my work at all. We are trying to get the liver to make the right amount of bile that's not as excessively toxic and have it go into the right places, which means into the intestines. And if the bile goes into the intestines and it's not too toxic, then it's going to do all the things that bile is supposed to do. It would just automatically happen. What do we not want the bile to do? We don't want it to be excessively toxic, because then it eats holes in everything it's touching, especially with vitamin A as retinoic acid in it, which is also known as a chemical peel. Bile eats holes in things. Vitamin A eats holes in things. So we don't want the bile leaking too toxic, because then that causes it to eat holes in things, and then it leaks. And then it goes into your bloodstream. And then it's causing, you have the most toxic fluid in your body, by definition, going everywhere in your system. Anywhere the blood goes, if the bile's in the blood, it goes everywhere. So your liver makes bile, and it effectively poops it out into the bile ducts. Just like you would not want, I don't know, let's say if we're saying the bile is the liver's poop, kind of think of, let's say, where do you put the poop in your house? You put it in the toilet. Well, what if your toilet was leaking inside your house? That would be bad, right? That would tend to create disease. This is what happens when your liver's poop, the bile, leaks excessively into your bloodstream. Or it goes up into your stomach and causes ulcers, or your esophagus and causes Barrett's esophagus, or it just eats holes everywhere it goes. If it's too toxic, and if it's going to the wrong places, it just causes problems. So just remember, folks, we are after making the right amount of bile, not toxic bile, and having it go where it's supposed to go. Like, as an example, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I have this on a video. I have a SIBO video. Do you know how they created SIBO in these dogs in the study? They tied off their common bile duct so that no bile went to the intestines. So no bile went to the intestines, which means that things started growing in the small intestine that are not supposed to grow there, because that's where the bile is supposed to go. So if you didn't tie off your common bile duct and you have SIBO, where does that mean your bile is going? Is it going into the small intestine and doing what it's supposed to do? No, it's going, you probably have intrahepatic cholestasis, which means the bile is leaking directly out of your liver into your bloodstream. So it's never going into your intestines. So it's not preventing the overgrowth of this bacteria in your small intestine, which is where the bile first goes into your intestine, okay? This is why all those antibiotics didn't work for it, and why antibiotics in general don't work for it. What are they trying to do with the antibiotics? They're trying to mess up your bile, possibly stop your bile from being made, so then you don't leak it back into your system. So then there's just nothing going anywhere. But you can try to kill the bacteria with the antibiotics, but you didn't fix the bile problem. But yeah, that SIBO episode, Joe, if you can find that SIBO episode, leaky gut and SIBO, that's the one. Okay, so let's keep going. This is not a democracy. This work of mine, I give full credit to Grant Genereux and Anthony Mawson and Kelsey for bringing the niacin stuff to my attention so graciously and helping me with her products and all that stuff. This is still my work as it comes out. Somebody actually suggested on the Love Your Liver program once, they were like, we should vote about this. We should vote about what to do about this. And I was like, no. Folks, great things in this world are not done by committee. Great things are done by a singular person who is driven and has a vision and is willing to stick to it. I mean, the US isn't even a democracy. We wouldn't want a democracy. A democracy is being ruled over by the majority. Is the majority generally, would we think of the majority as being intelligent in this country right now? No. Should they run things then? No. But anyway, this is I'm here to run the show. I have taken on the mantle. This is what I do. Lots of people are benefiting, so they think I'm pretty, acceptable to lead the charge. But yeah, it's not a democracy. It's not a vote. If somebody's in the program saying stuff that I don't like, then shit, they're gone. Sorry. I might give them one chance. If they said it nice enough, I might give them one chance. That's how it is. I don't have time on Twitter for people to pollute my algorithm, my timeline. I don't have time to have people on my timeline who are just polluting it. I have a mission here to do. Okay, so this is a funny saying. We have a complicated algorithm around here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, people could take this wrong. One guy the other day on Twitter was like, he's like, but why are milk and eggs bad? Like, I eat them and I feel pretty good. How many people here in our community used to think that? Lots. Oh, I'm fine with it. I like it. You don't realize vitamin A is addictive. What do addicts like the most? Well, their addiction. I once heard a guy I once heard a guy at a food bank. He was there working as community service. He was trying to explain to a woman there that weed was actually good for people. Like, people need weed. It's good for everybody. And I was like, wow, there's a reason this guy's in the system. And I was like maybe a junior in high school or a senior in high school hearing this at this time. And I was like, that I know that ain't right. It may not be as terrible for people as other drugs. Sure, it's not good for people. So some people will think, well, because I'm doing this already and things aren't broken, well, why fix it? Okay, well, sometimes you have to know, like, you could have the emergency brake on in your car and you could drive it and you get used to it. You'd drive slower at the same gas pedal, but it would eventually ruin things in your car. But you could say, well, it seems to be working fine right now. So sometimes you have to know things cause problems first based on the people who have come before you. But when we have people like, let's say somebody's doing their testing and consult with us, and their zinc level is doing well on testing. Like, their hair test is good, their blood test is good, they're on a certain dose of zinc, and they're eating a certain amount of muscle meat in a day. And they're kind of like, well, could I take more zinc? Oh my gosh, somebody said on Twitter the other day that like 2025 was going to be the molybdenum mega dosing year. And I was like, not in my community. No. Y'all want to go around and mega dose molybdenum, you go right ahead. I've seen people get loopy from it. I've seen people get gout from megadosing molybdenum. It's in the literature. I've seen it happen in real life. I'm like, yeah, I guess go ahead if you need to prove it to yourself that you don't want to megadose anything. So, oh, thank you, Hound Jog. She said I'm loved. Well, I'm just here trying to do what I'm just here doing what I was put here to do. Sergio 150. Okay, so let me, since I did the molybdenum example, Sergio asks 150 micrograms of molybdenum a day is fine. Yes and no. This is why we don't do protocols. We use our brains. For most people, this was one of my mentors taught me. The guy who wrote the original book on adrenal fatigue, James L. Wilson. This is not Dr. Lawrence Wilson. This is James L. Wilson. He said, he told me when I worked for him and I was doing research on his supplements and finding stuff to back up why he was using, certain ingredients in his supplements. He said, if you can make a supplement that helps 80% of people, you've done a very good thing. And me being, young and like wanting to be a perfectionist, I'm like, well, wait, what about those other 20% of people? Like, what do they need? And he's like, well, maybe some of them need more of it. Maybe some of them need less of it. Maybe some of them, that's not their problem. And so they don't benefit from it. So he's like, so you have to be okay with, if you help 80% of people with a supplement, you have done a very, very good thing. Okay, so think about that. If I wanted to make a molybdenum supplement or the keystone minerals and I had to put a certain amount of molybdenum in it, if somebody were to ask me, is 150 micrograms of molybdenum the perfect amount for every single person on the earth? Hopefully they realize that would be a not very bright question, because does a 100-pound woman need the same as a 200-pound man? That doesn't make any sense now, does it? But to make a supplement, right, to make a product, you have to pick an amount. So for, in my estimation, 80% of people, 150 micrograms of molybdenum a day is a good amount that will prevent people from getting really deficient. Some people might need more than that to fill up their tank if they're started out deficient. And for a lot of people, it's just a very good, very safe maintenance amount, because what is my goal here? First do no harm, right? So if I was living the first do no harm philosophy, my goal is to give people an amount. If I have to pick one amount for a lot of people, my goal is to pick an amount that's not going to make people toxic. First do no harm. This is why when people are talking about megadosing molybdenum, I'm like, oh, no, you're not even testing? And you may not even know what I know about like molybdenum excess symptoms. And you're just going to go megadose it because you got high ferritin? I mean, go ahead. I'll be here later. Hopefully it clears up quickly, whatever you do to your system. So, especially if somebody was making something like a multi-mineral, like keystone minerals, I have to pick something. I have to pick amounts of, now I have to pick 3 minerals. I have to pick amounts of 3 minerals that would seem to be enough to help 80% of people, and not so much that it would make 80% of people toxic. So when one is as conscientious as I am about, I don't know, these guiding principles of medicine, like first do no harm, these decisions get tougher than people realize. Some people, there's a woman came to the office hours the other day. She can't even take 1 drop of molybdenum liquid, which is like, I think it's like 6.7 micrograms of molybdenum. She has a reaction to 6.7 micrograms of molybdenum. So how's she going to do on 150 micrograms? She's not going to do well. I tend to do 300 micrograms of molybdenum a day because I've been doing hair testing for years, and I have figured out that is the dose. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That is the dose that keeps me in the normal range. So we got one woman who can't handle 6.7 micrograms of molybdenum, and we got me who has regularly over the years taken 300 micrograms a day, and I'm not getting toxic. Is 150 micrograms the best dose for everybody? No. Is it a good dose that will help at least prevent deficiency and potentially bring people up? And for some people, it's a really good amount. Is it an amount that's not going to make a bunch of people toxic? Yeah, correct. Are there people who can't tolerate 150 micrograms of molybdenum? Absolutely. So that's the answer. The answer is it depends. So if people are not testing long term, remember, if you just slowly put a little bit more of something into the system than you need over the long term, then you accumulate it. And can you accumulate, quote unquote, good minerals and potentially cause yourself toxicity? Yeah. I've been doing these minerals, with people for 2013. I started doing hair mineral analysis. So I got 11 years of experience and pattern recognition and observations under my belt. It's a lot more than a lot of these young bucks on Twitter who are like, they think they're the hair analysis king because they can regurgitate what Eck and Watts said and then add on some of the craziness of Lawrence Wilson to it. So, oh, wait, let's fix this. Here we go. But yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're doing something in the program, you're doing something in line with the Love Your Liver program, and it's working. And what I mean by working is you could feel better, or at least you do not feel worse. And then let's say it's zinc, and you're like, well, I feel better when I take this amount of zinc. Okay, this is a common thing that can happen with testing. Let's say somebody comes in, they're taking 30 milligrams of zinc, and me or one of the other practitioners are like, well, okay, so your zinc is still deficient, whether it's hair or blood or both. Your zinc is still deficient. You got these markers of zinc deficiency. How much zinc are you taking? They say 30 milligrams. Okay. Here, normally, this is the way I would do it. I'd be like, are you willing to try taking more? And sometimes you'll get a response of like, well, I tried 45 and oh my gosh, I couldn't sleep. I was anxious, whatever. And I'm like, okay, but then we're just going to stick with 30 because you're getting enough. And then usually we can look back at their hair tests and their blood tests and say, oh, so you are over time, we are seeing fewer of the zinc deficiency markers. There's actually 5. Between a hair test and a blood test, I have 5 markers of zinc deficiency. If I have a couple extra blood tests that I don't normally run, I can get 1 or 2 more out of like basic blood tests. So if we see that, let's say out of those 5, that like over time, 3 of them disappear and there's only 2 left, 30 milligrams got them there. 30 milligrams brought them to the dance. Dance with the one who brought you, right? 30 milligrams brought them there, and they've been improving. Their zinc deficiency is going away over time. And 45 milligrams was too much based on symptoms. Okay, well then let's just stick with 30. It's working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the thing. Everybody wants to, especially new practitioners with like the stuff that I do, they want to jump in and just give tons of stuff and like hammer it right away. Can be a good way to lose clients when the clients, feel like you made them worse. And then sometimes the clients, because of their own issues, they won't take less than you said because the doctor said to take this much. And in their head, they're like, if I don't take this much, I'm a bad person. I'm a failure to the doctor because I'm a people pleaser. So then what do they do? Instead of coming even to office hours or coming back to the practitioner and tell them this doesn't feel good, they just stop going in. This is why we give people the opportunity. We can say you have a zinc deficiency based on your hair test and your blood test very easily. But we are trying to find the dose that works the best for that person, which is not the same necessarily between 2 people. The blood tests and the hair tests are the map. So think of like Google Maps, right? It's the blood and the hair tests are the map, and it's telling you like you're here and you want to get here. So when you're looking at a map of a city, right? There's Google Maps might show you like 10 different routes that you could take to get there. Now think of those routes as 10 different people. So we can have people with the same deficiencies on their tests, but it might be 10 different approaches or routes to get there. This is respecting individuality. This is like personalized medicine, but the person has to take a role in it. That is their job. So if you're thinking about working with me or one of the practitioners or doing this stuff and you're just like, how much zinc do I take? Can't somebody just give me a number? No, we can't. We can give you guidelines. We can give you ways to test. But if you don't want to do the testing and figure it out for yourself, you're figuring out how to do this for yourself for the rest of your life, folks. We are teaching like skills of listening to your body and getting feedback. So you're not fighting against your body doing shit that you hear on the internet just because somebody said it. And then you're like, well, they said this would lower my estrogen, so I'm just going to take it even though I feel like hot garbage. No, we're not doing that. First of all, we're not treating symptoms. Estrogen is a symptom. If you have estrogen issues, you have symptoms. If you have progesterone, you have estrogen dominance. That's a symptom. If you want to go and push buttons and push progesterone buttons and estrogen buttons, you're not dealing with the cause. You're dealing with the symptom. Could you make yourself feel better? Sure. Are you dealing with the root cause? No. Not if you're just trying to push hormone buttons. Okay. The next one. Bile is both the cause of and the solution to your problems. Well, this kind of goes with the bile is the liver's poop kind of thing. Bile is fixing your bile. Well, okay, so when people come to this program, they're here because they have toxicities, they have deficiencies, and they have toxic bile leaking into their bloodstream, causing havoc wherever it goes. And wherever their weak link in the chain is where their issues show up. Bile recipe, so what is actually in the bile, and the bile amount, how much is actually leaking into their blood, determine how their symptoms look and how intense they are. Okay, so that is the cause of the problems. So what is the solution to the problems then? Well, we're going to stop putting the poisons in. We're going to facilitate the removal of the poisons from the body. This is how we fix the toxicities. We're going to correct the deficiencies as we are able to, based on the person's diet, chosen diet, and supplements, preferably with testing. So we can do the most laser-focused guidance of supplement dosing for them. And then if they do the testing and consultation packages, then they get the help from, just if you don't know this, if you sign up for a consultation package with any practitioner, you can come to any practitioner's, all practitioners' office hours. So in a week, let's say you wanted help or you just wanted to learn stuff. You could sit in on Kelsey's office hours, my office hours, Hope's office hours, and Nathan's office hours. If you wanted to do so, you could get like 6 hours-ish of listening to practitioners troubleshoot others and asking your own questions every week, because we allow whoever you work with. If you work with Nathan, you can come to my office hours. If you work with Kelsey, you can go to Hope's office hours. You can go to all of them because we want to provide you what you need to get better. We don't expect you to know everything about this at the start. We do expect you to read and follow and listen to the Love Your Liver program. We don't have time in the consults to go over the Love Your Liver program. Those of you who are in there know that it is big. And it should be, because there's lots of things making people sick. So there's lots of things that people have to know about. So that was how we fix the toxicities and deficiencies. So by fixing the toxicities and deficiencies over time, your bile becomes less toxic, which means that the holes that it ate, that it leaks through, also start shrinking. So by fixing the toxicities and the deficiencies, you fix the toxicity of the bile. And by fixing the deficiencies, you increase your body's ability to heal the holes that have been eaten through. And then you start leaking less bile, and the bile you do leak is less toxic. And then we see your symptoms decrease. That is how bile is the cause of and the solution to your problems. And this is why everybody else out there talking about the cause of chronic disease, that's why they have a different cause for every disease, is because they haven't figured out that it's just the bile doing all of it. Oh, Beth said she just sent in her hair sample and got booked with Kelsey. So that's awesome. And then you'll have to come to my office hours, Beth, if you... Yeah. And we try to space out the office hours, so people can come on different days of the week. We do have it, we're all in the U.S., so it's all kind of U.S. hours. But yeah, so sometimes some of these are just very simple sayings. Stop. Just stop. This is me frustrated in a way with people who just keep, well, if it's very much, it goes along with, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. And Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that. And then what is my advice to these people? Stop. Stop doing what you're doing. If you want to change something, you need to change something. So if you feel like crap from taking something, you need to stop taking the thing that's making you feel like crap. Don't ever believe any practitioner, I don't care how alternative or natural or whatever, who tells you you start taking a supplement and you feel bad. And they're like, oh, no, just keep taking it. It will fix you eventually. You'll get better eventually, and then you'll feel amazing. No, it doesn't work like that. If you feel like crap at the beginning, you're going to feel like crap from it for good. Or then you get those practitioners who are like, well, if you can't take these supplements that I use for PCOS, then I guess we can't work together, because that's their only tool. They're going to give these 5 supplements together for PCOS. And if you feel bad on them, you don't fit my solution. So you can just go find somebody else. That's what they do. Okay, next one. You can't out-antidote a poison. A lot of people think this is very much like vitamin D3. Rat poison, also known as. People say, oh, but you got to take your K2 and your magnesium with your vitamin D3 so you don't calcify to death, is really what they say. And I'm like, okay. Supposedly you could just go out and get some light, some sunlight, or some UV, which hasn't been shown to cause hypervitaminosis D. And you could, if you needed to, you could take vitamin K2. And people should definitely be doing topical magnesium. If you haven't seen my topical or transdermal magnesium live stream, you should watch it. And if you haven't tried our magnesium lotion, I saw a review the other day. Thank you for this review if you're watching, but they said it was liquid gold, our magnesium lotion. So if you haven't tried our magnesium lotion, you should. If you don't like doing topical magnesium, ours has 500, basically twice as much magnesium per teaspoon as any other magnesium lotion product on the market. So, but you can't out-antidote a poison. People figure this out after they find my work. And they're like, but I was taking vitamin D3 and K2. Shouldn't I have been fine? And then I tell them, stop the D3. And they stop it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel better. We have tons of people who come here who took K2 and D3 together, and they feel better without the D3. You cannot out-antidote a poison. People are trying to antidote the poison that is vitamin D3 supplements with vitamin K2 supplements. And it won't work. I have one research study that showed that it didn't work. That they had no less calcification when they took vitamin K2 with their D3. And I have lots of anecdotes. Oh, Hound Jog says she's using our lotion now. Well, thank you. And I enjoy. But yeah, this is a big problem where people will be like, oh, you just take enough of this vitamin if you're doing this thing. Or, oh, have you heard about the nutrient depletions of pharmaceutical drugs? Oh yeah, go look up pharmaceutical nutrient depletion. Now, they mainly talk about vitamins and stuff like that, but it's really just they're poisoning you, and then they're trying to give you an antidote for the poison. One of the big things, the big antidotes that people don't realize, 2 of them, B1 thiamine is an aldehyde antidote. Joe, if you want to post the berry or the thiamine episode, you could do that. So B1 thiamine binds to aldehydes. So the folks out there are taking tons and tons of thiamine, and they say, I have to take this or I feel terrible. What they have is they have tons of aldehydes in their system. And their ALDH sucks. So if they take enough thiamine, they bind to enough aldehydes, and the thiamine makes the aldehydes less toxic for now. But then the next day, they got to do the whole dance again because they didn't fix the problem. They're antidoting the poison that's in them. We fix the root cause, which is the excess of aldehydes and the slow ALDH. And then people, as many people have found, they don't need the thiamine anymore. Maybe they benefited at the start, and I'm fine with people taking thiamine. And maybe they benefited from the start. And then over time, they realize they don't need it, or maybe even the thiamine makes them feel bad. And they stop, and then they don't need it anymore. This is actually fixing stuff. Like, the food supply is deficient, so people may need some of the mineral supplements and niacin for good. The food supply sucks. But what we see is we have people who, let's say, do some of the antidote supplements at the start, vitamins one, that then over time they don't need anymore. Now, how many other practitioners do you go to where they tell you our goal over time is if you're on more supplements than we normally use is to reduce your supplements? We want to get you off anything unnecessary. And we have a short list of supplements. So I would love it if people didn't have to take any supplements. Is big chemical industry going to let us do that? No, they're not going to let us do that. Are they going to, do farmers actually care about the levels of nutrients in the foods they grow? Not really. They're just trying to scrape by a living. They just need to bring stuff to market that they can sell so they can keep their farm. They're not going to be adding molybdenum to their fertilizer if it doesn't change what the output is. Okay? It's a sad state of affairs, but it is the way it is. Okay. So we have the next one. So the other antidote, B12. B12 is an antidote for hydrogen sulfide. Do I talk about people needing to eat less sulfur a lot? Yeah. What does sulfur turn into your body? Some of it turns into the toxic gas known as hydrogen sulfide. What is B12 a known antidote for in the scientific literature? Hydrogen sulfide poisoning. So, what is another mineral, a trace mineral that we need to process sulfur correctly? Molybdenum, funny enough. So if somebody's having the need to take tons of B12 that would never occur in nature, it means they're poisoning themselves, or they're just still poisoned. They're still toxic, or they're constantly poisoning themselves. Probably with sulfur, be that dairy or eggs, specifically egg whites, or cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, all that stuff. Then allium, onions, garlic. They might be taking sulfur supplements, MSM, glucosamine sulfate, chondroitin sulfate, alpha lipoic acid, all these things, garlic pills. Oh my goodness. NAC, N-acetylcysteine. Cysteine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. So they're taking a supplement full of sulfur. We don't do this. And then we see people who needed B12 at the start not need it later. I poisoned myself with MSM so bad that I had to do IVs of B12 on myself to relieve my symptoms, and they worked amazingly well. Amazingly well. I antidoted. I stopped. I didn't know what caused it. I knew the MSM caused it, and I already stopped that. It was a month later. I was still poisoned. And then I did injections. I did intramuscular injections of B12 the first day, and then the second day, I did, what did I do? 12 intramuscular B12 injections the first day, and then I did an IV of some crazy amount of B12. I think I had 200,000 micrograms of B12 in 2 days. 200,000 micrograms. And I was 90% better within 2 days. B12 is a hydrogen sulfide antidote. So if you have B12, excessive B12 needs, you're poisoned. You're toxic. And you're probably trying to eat healthy, and you're eating lots of broccoli, or you're taking DIM, or you're doing all these other sulfur supplements, and you're poisoning yourself, and you're causing yourself to need all that B12. And you're probably molybdenum deficient, just like pretty much everybody out there is. Okay. I told you, but you didn't listen. Now, this is a funny example on Brian Johnson. I've gone on his Twitter thread and I've posted things about what he's doing. He doesn't reply. It's funny. A lot of the big accounts don't reply to me. And I'm just going to, again, it's the siege. I just wait. At the end, I can say, I told you so, but you didn't listen. I was here warning you, especially these young, dumb, and full of whatever guys who are just like, oh, I know everything. I'm like 20 years old, bro. Okay. I remember my dad telling me, he said, I remember the age where there's like the age where you think you're dead. So it's like a thing that men go through, especially. I think women may go through this too, but he said there's an age where you're young and you think your dad knows everything, or your dad knows a ton. And then you get to the age where you think your dad doesn't know anything about anything. And then as you get older, you're like, wow, my dad really did know a lot. The arrogance of youth, that like teenage 20-something window where especially men just think they know everything. The health field is no exception. Oh, the liver king. Yeah, the liver king. Well, yeah, he's a good one. But yeah, so we're just going to watch all these people just crumble. If you're following an influencer who is really tan and also really red, there are multiple of them out there. The redness means they're toxic, just so you know. It doesn't mean they have a healthy tan. Like when you see somebody who is tan and red, they are super duper vitamin A toxic. And that will catch up with them. And then they will wonder, and their followers will wonder, why did this happen? Sunburning is basically aldehyde toxicity in your skin. Remember, retinaldehyde is a vitamin A. One of the forms of vitamin A is an aldehyde. Somebody on Twitter said the other day they were doing the AI thing, and they got the AI to admit that all aldehydes are toxic. But then he started asking it about retinaldehyde, and it said retinaldehyde is essential. You must have retinaldehyde. So it's essential that you have this toxic nutrient. And he thought that was funny. And I thought it was funny too. So, okay, salt your food. Salt your food. Okay. There is a big trend now on Twitter and other places where there's like bodybuilder beefcake bros saying, take 10 grams or more of salt a day because it makes you look fuller and your workouts will be better and you'll be more vascular and all. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. There's the guy saying to take 10 grams or more of creatine a day because it's so safe. And I'm like, do you know creatine turns into 2 different aldehydes in your system? And they found that when people took more than, I think it was a gram or a gram and a half at a time, they could measure these aldehydes going up in the urine. So they were pissing out these aldehydes that they were making in their system from the creatine. Weird. They're sending aldehydes to the kidneys. Aldehydes are toxic. And everybody's just like, creatine is the safest supplement ever. And I'm like, okay. Maybe it just takes a long time to do its damage. If you want to take creatine, I suggest no more than 2 grams a day. Make sure it's the German stuff, not Chinese. Do I think you need it? No. If you're eating enough red meat, I don't really think you need it. Might your workouts be a little better on it? Sure. Okay. Your workouts would be better on steroids too. Better. Yes, you can sacrifice long-term for short-term multiple different ways. As I see one of the guys pushing 10 grams of creatine, he's going in for a hip replacement. And he's already on testosterone, and he was one of the big paleo guys. Wow, I wonder what caused all that inflammation. Okay, so salt your food. About salting. So I wanted to say obsessive, like crazy amounts of salt mess people up. Not salting your food at all or salting your food too little for what you need is a problem. And I have seen the people who I could not get better. There's a theme with especially people who don't salt their food. They refuse to salt their food because that's the way they grew up. My mom didn't ever salt our food. So they got used to it. That doesn't mean it's good for them. They just got used to it because their mom did it. I can't get them better. They don't get better. That's just what I've observed. Okay, Bonjo was saying he associates redness with toxicity. People that go red fast in the sun are overflowing with aldehydes, and he said that used to be him. Yeah, I used to get super red. My boy is still a little more toxic than I'd like, and he goes out and gets in the sun and gets exertion, and he gets the red cheeks, the bright red cheeks. But I only have him, 3 days a week. So there's only so much I can do to undo my ex-partner's screw ups. So, Oh, Bonjo was saying he doesn't get red from cardio anymore. He used to light up when doing heavy cardio. So see, we can fix the redness, folks. If you get red, if you're pale skinned enough to notice that you get red from things, you're toxic. We can fix that. Yes, you may still get red from a niacin flush because the niacin flush is processing the aldehydes out of you, but they're going from the alcohol to the aldehyde to the acid stages. So when they go through the aldehyde, that's the redness of the flush, but you're clearing them out. Okay. You won't find what you're not looking for. So if, as an example, if people go out on the internet and they've decided, they've been hypnotized by putting the word vitamin in front of vitamin A. So every time you say that, do you realize why they did this? Why they put a word in front of all these letters, where every time you say it, you have been programmed into thinking that it is good and necessary and essential. Because somebody said so. You are hypnotizing yourself. So if people go into it and they're like, well, I don't think vitamin A toxicity is legit. I think it's probably just only people who take mega doses of supplements, and that's the only thing, and that's what they go looking for, and they find, oh yeah, it's very rare, and it only happens to people who take crazy high doses of supplements. Well, I could have found that too, but I was specifically looking for toxicity evidence, and I went and I found it. And I started questioning my clients about it. And I started observing things about myself and looking into my history. I was looking, so people might be like, well, you're biased. Of course I'm biased. Everybody's biased. Give me a break. Who's not biased? You're fooling yourself. But I went looking for toxicity research and I found it. Obviously, I found it. I do it every week in these live streams. I present it. But people who don't go looking for that are not going to find it. If they're just like, well, Weston Price says, you've put yourself in an echo chamber of people who are addicted to vitamin A, and you're not going to find it there. So if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. Okay, they're telling us what they're doing, folks. This was actually who posted this on Twitter the other day? I think Mike Roberto did. When I first started watching Breaking Bad, right? A show about a teacher making meth to pay for his cancer treatments and all the misadventures that they get into. All these jolly misadventures. I think it was the very first episode where I can't remember who it was, but the guy specifically said that vitamin A is toxic for your liver. And I was watching and I was like, oh, it was like that, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the TV. He's like, oh, look. I was like that. I was seriously like that. And I thought, oh my gosh, this show's going to be amazing. Wow, they're just uncovering this. And then, then it just became like glorifying doing meth or something. I don't know. I didn't finish the whole show because I was like, this kind of sucks now. But they're telling you that vitamin A is toxic. They did it in a massive show. The bad guys have a deal where they have to tell us somehow what they're doing to us. And the idea is that if we continue to allow it, then we have given our permission to let them do that to us. Because they told us what they're doing. Revelation of the method, yes. They have to tell us what they're doing, or else they don't get as much power and as much loosh and all stuff out of it. Okay? If you don't look, so you can't find what you're not looking for. So if you're not looking for them to tell us what they're doing, you don't find it, right? So those two sayings go together. Okay, next one. Starving oneself is a guaranteed fast way to health problems, including death. Yeah, there's a Pete influencer on an ex-model on Twitter who was talking about the other day about how she was eating 900 calories a day. She was starving herself. And she had all sorts of health problems and mental issues and all this stuff. And lo and behold, she started eating more food and a ton of her problems went away, even though she was eating sugar. Wow, you were not eating enough and you started eating enough calories and a lot of your problems went away. Wow, can we get this girl a Nobel Prize? She's really special. That's who I think benefits the most from Pete. People who were starving themselves unknowingly and they start eating more food and they feel better. This is why people who weren't under eating try and do Pete and they find all of a sudden they feel like crap and they get more problems. People go, "Oh, it helps my thyroid function." Well, your thyroid suffers when you don't eat enough. This is all over the literature. So yeah, starving yourself is a guaranteed way to health problems. It can eventually end in death. So yeah, that's like the worst side effect of a diet. So we're trying to avoid that one. We're trying to avoid the slow death called starvation. So if you're not eating enough food, if you're on this program, when I have people come to me and they're like, "I'm eating the food and I'm still hungry," you probably are not eating enough food. Like you could eat when you're eating a high fiber diet or like a lot of soluble fiber, like you could potentially eat enough soluble fiber that you feel full, but you don't have enough calories in you yet. Okay? We have a very satiating diet. Between meat and a lot of soluble fiber, like our diet is amazingly satiating. So generally I would say, and some people are like, but I just don't want to eat the same thing all the time. Well, then don't. I don't. I do not do the prison diet. The whole reason for the Love Your Liver program is so people, I mean, would I be here trying to teach all this stuff if I was just like carnivores are, where they're just like, eat muscle meat, the solution to everything. Like if I was just going, okay, eat beef or bison, brown or white rice, and black beans for the rest of your life, 3 times a day. The whole reason I did all this was because I wouldn't do that program. I was like, wait, if we're trying to do a low vitamin A approach, can't I find a bunch of foods that are low in vitamin A and then people can have more of a choice than the prison diet? Zen Dog liked my different, he calls it my derp voice. He likes my different derp voice. Nice. Hound Jog says she's doing the cowboy diet. I mean, okay, folks, if you thrive on repetitiveness, if you're just like, let's make something simple. I want to do, I mean, a lot of diets out there, typically in the past, fad diets out there do well because the way they're set up, it helps you remove your brain. Like if you say, vegan diets fix everything. Okay, what's a vegan diet? No animal products. So you can look at anything in the store and go, animal or not animal? Okay, not animal. I can eat this. Is it animal? Oh, I can't eat it. All muscle meat carnivore. Okay, is it muscle meat? Yes or no? Okay, I can eat it or I can't. So they try to take, keto. Eat 80% fat in your diet. Oh, that just makes me want to retch. And then they just go, okay, so I just got to eat 80% fat. So I'll just find all these things that are super high in fat and eat those all day. So it's like a lot of these diets just remove your brain. Now, for some people, we have principles and concepts in this program, and some people just go, I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to look at food lists. I don't want to have to do all this. What can I eat that's simple? Well, you could eat muscle meat and grains, or you could eat muscle meat and beans. Muscle meat and beans, we call the cowboy diet. If you wanted to call muscle meat and oats, you could call that the Highlander diet. So, and that's fine. Like I've gotten into recently, I've started making one of my stews on a regular basis, and I'm finding that I'm doing really well with it at lunch. So my lunch has been it's got meat in it, it's got beans in it, and it's got grains in it. So, and I'm doing some sorghum like porridge at breakfast with a couple of bananas, maybe even a beef stick. And that little setup is working quite well for me, and I'm doing it fairly repetitively. Okay. Might I change it in a month? Sure. Okay. People want to ask me, well, what do you eat? And I'm like, that doesn't matter. What I eat doesn't matter at all. What exercise program your favorite football team coach doesn't matter, right? Football coaches are like giant fat guys. They get their teams to win. If they get their teams to win, people are like, oh, you're doing the right thing. They don't go, well, what's your workout program, coach? Because no one cares. They just want the results. I'm here to get people results. I've obviously gotten results for myself. You can go and look at my videos from 6 years ago and see that I've gotten plenty of results. And I get people results. But people they want to know exactly what I eat so they can like poke holes in it. Or they either want to poke holes in it and say, look, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or they want to take their brain out of it and they want to say, I'm going to eat exactly what Dr. G eats. Because I don't want to have to think. This program is not for not thinking, but if you want to simplify your diet, like you can do the cowboy diet or the Highlander diet, and that's fine. The lady who fixed her cirrhosis did the cowboy diet. It works as long as you get along with the beans. Some people don't get along with beans, so don't eat them. Okay. Okay, so now the next one. This work is not for everyone and never will be. I've already said this multiple times. If people don't want to learn and think and self-experiment, this is not for you. If you're not willing to question everything you've learned in the past about health, this work is not for you. That's all there is to it. And we have plenty of people who are very willing to help in the Love Your Liver program. It's what social media should have been. Like people on the same page talking about the same topics and not being a-holes to each other. This is why in the Love Your Liver network, if you're an a-hole and you want to be an a-hole and you insist on being an a-hole, I'm going to kick you out. We just don't have any room for that. So again, this work is not for a-holes and never will be. Let them go out to their other forums and mentally masturbate there. Because boy, do they enjoy that mental masturbation. Okay. This Bonjo says he was showing people how I aged backwards. I mean, I appreciate that. What we need to do, actually, Sarah, we need to make a note on this if you're watching. We need to re-upload all the videos to the main video area of the YouTube channel because they're all stuck in the live area right now, and we should have them two places. So, I forgot to say, in the show notes now, guys, and on wherever I announce it, I forget his name. I don't know if Sarah told me his name. If to the gentleman who did this, you did amazing work. I'm sorry I don't have your name right now, but I'm thanking you for your work regardless. This gentleman made a website, which is used AI to get all the transcripts of all my live streams. I don't know if it's all the videos on the entire channel. I know it's at least the live streams, and he made it searchable so you could search all the transcripts of all the live streams and find places where I discuss certain things. So that link is now in the show notes below. And when we re-upload the videos, then we'll put it on all of those from the start. But yeah, if you want to look for something, that's the best way to find it. Oh yeah, Joe posted the link in the live chat. And like I said, it's down in the info. So this next one, I don't know where I got this saying from. I did get it from somebody else. Where did I got this from James Sensenig. He's one of the old timer NDs in my school, and he was my naturopathic philosophy teacher. Give the body what it wants. Don't give it anything it doesn't need, and get the hell out of the way so it can do its job. So it can do what it's designed to do, which is heal itself. You are constantly healing yourself. That's how you stay alive. If you were not constantly healing yourself, you would just completely degenerate, probably fairly rapidly. Okay, so the body needs what it needs, right? So give the body what it wants. Fixing deficiencies. Don't give it anything it doesn't need. Oh, prioritize avoiding toxins. And then get the hell out of the way so it can do its job. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take time to fix the problems. They don't fix overnight. So this was just a really cool saying that he gave me back then. And it was funny because there was a naturopathic philosophy club in school. And it was started by guys a couple years younger than me. And I kind of saw it and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool, but I don't really need to go to a meeting every week to talk about first do no harm. Like I kind of got that. I grokked that. I don't need to go there and like debate on the philosophy of first do no harm. And then I found out later that these guys kind of just created the club so they could have an excuse to get away from their wives. And I was like, oh, that makes more sense than sitting there talking about naturopathic philosophy. Zen Dog, chickpeas are a legume, right? Yes. They are. Okay. This is a joke. This is a joke saying so I came up with this after I started noticing that women I'd work with, doing the hair test, and I was all distance. Hold on, I'm about to sneeze. I was completely a distance practice by then, so that you'll understand the joke. We were just helping women. Like we had one woman who had 5 years of unexplained infertility. Nobody could explain her infertility. And within a year of working with me on the hair testing and minerals and stuff like that, she gets pregnant. So we fixed unexplained infertility. And we started noticing that women were getting pregnant much easier. We had that one woman I've told the story about who was 40, and I told her, like, look, if you don't want to get pregnant, she said, well, my husband and I have been, we already have like 3 kids. We don't want to have any more. I said, you better work hard on not getting pregnant if you don't want to get pregnant, because this program will make you fertile. She said they messed up one time and she's pregnant, a 40-year-old woman. So, the joke I had, because I kind of enjoyed how it kind of irritated my ex-wife, was, if you send a woman to me who is trying to get pregnant, I will get her pregnant. And I would say it with like a joking smirk. And it was funny. It is funny. I don't care. It is funny. Anybody who understands my work and what I do, and that I'm a distance doctor, I'm a virtual doctor, telemedicine, whatever you want to call it, should find this joke funny. But she didn't. She didn't have a great sense of humor, I realized over the years. I think she just laughed at my jokes more when we were first together because, she wanted me to like her. Well, anyway, that's enough on that. Next one. This is the Western world. This is Toxicity City. Okay. If you guys remember in years past, Europeans are extremely protective of their food. They are very protective of their food, but they were very not protective of their borders. So they were invaded, very obviously. Very obvious invasion. Americans are a bit more protective of our borders, but we don't seem to give a crap about protecting our food or keeping industry from poisoning us. This is why, like, there's so many food additives that are illegal in Europe and are just fine to use here. Like, we don't care about protecting our food. We care more about protecting our borders than we do about protecting our food supply. Europeans care more about protecting their food supply than they do about protecting their borders. Hence the EU and all that stuff. Okay. Emmer, there's no greens in the stew. There's beans. There's no greens, that's for sure. So we just allowed ourselves to be poisoned because I don't know. I guess we think that these good capitalist company owners are gonna protect us out of group interest or something. They don't care. It's like the whole H1B thing now. What a joke. We're doing it for you. Sure you are. Okay. Is this the last one? I think it is. Okay. You are what you eat. Now, I think this was Saladin. I think the farmer, is it Joel Saladin? I think this is his saying. You are what you eat, and you are what you eat ate. So, if the soil is deficient, then the plants that grow in that soil are deficient. If the herbivores who eat those plants are eating deficient plants from deficient soil, then the herbivore is deficient. If you then consume the meat from that herbivore, you are consuming the deficiency that was passed on from the soil to the plants, to the herbivore, and now you don't get what was supposed to be in it. Joel Salatin, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Joe. Then, if there's toxicity in the soil, that goes into the plants. Those plants go into the herbivores, and then you eat the herbivore. So we are passing along toxicities and deficiencies from the soil to the plants, to the herbivores, to us. So you are what you eat, and you are what you ate. So if you eat crap, you're made of crap. I mean, it's very basic. The you are what you eat is very true, but it was very true that you don't want to be eating toxic things. Actually, let me go over this whole thing about beef tallow again. Okay, so everybody's thinking that like RFK Jr. is doing us all some massive, gigantic favor by trying to get a fast food restaurant like McDonald's to cook their fries in beef tallow again. Oh, joy, this will save everyone's health. Okay, because they used to do it. So obviously, it's like an appeal to tradition fallacy that just because they used to do it, that it's better for you. Okay. Well, now we have papers showing that when they fed mice alcohol and either tallow or different fats, the mice who got the tallow diet died the quickest. Then we have another study that showed when they gave tallow versus other fats and a toxin, the mice who got the tallow developed cancer in their gut and in their liver quicker than the other oils. So it's really weird that there's these obvious studies out there on tallow maybe not being so great, but maybe the tallow was less toxic back in the 50s. Okay, because where do humans store fat-soluble toxins that we consume? We store them. Fat-soluble toxins means fat-storable toxins. So we store them in our body fat and in our liver. Storing too many fat-soluble toxins in your liver is what creates fatty liver. Other places in the body that store a lot of fatty toxins might look like fatty tumors or just being very overweight. Okay, so where do we think, so now that we have that logic for humans, where do we think that our meat animals store their fat-soluble toxins? Well, they store it in their fat and in their liver. So here's a weird little conspiracy idea. What if they wanted to engineer another pandemic that would help them to get rid of beef? They would need to make us all sick by beef and connect it to cattle. What could they change in how they fed or sprayed or whatever to cattle that could transfer a fat-soluble toxin to the rest of us? What if they started a fad of basically telling everybody that beef tallow is about the healthiest thing that you could eat, and now suddenly French fries that are made in tallow are good for you? And then let's have everybody rub tallow on their faces. I even saw deodorants now have beef tallow in them. Do you understand that? And then all of a sudden, somebody brought up this coinky dink. All of a sudden, Bovaer comes out. They said it was really weird that this whole Bovaer thing came out and the beef tallow fad started around the same time. So remember, they want you eating bugs. They need to demonize cattle so they can force you to say goodbye to them. How could they do that? By getting you to eat poisoned fat with specific fat-soluble toxins in it that you can't find what you're not looking for. So if they're not looking for this toxin that they gave you, and they just start saying, oh, you have the new virus. But viruses are toxicity. So if they gave you a toxicity and then they start finding a virus in your system, oh, and they found the same virus in the cattle, it's the same toxin. That's all it is. Animal fat. I'm not saying to never eat animal fat. I mean, I had a steak last night and I'll be honest, I didn't cut off every single bit of fat on it, okay? But animal fat is the absolute best at absorbing fat-soluble toxins out of your diet. And animal fat is the best at giving you the types of fat that you would turn into fat storage. It's the best at that. It's the best. So, just think. First of all, never trust any politicians. They are not coming to save you. The guy who wants to do the brain chips is not coming to save you. When you start hearing about the US taking over Canada, and you start hearing about, oh, I don't know, these order world new ideas, and they're trying to make it all one big country, wow, you should be looking at that and going, that was too obvious a move. That was like way too obvious. They're trying to create amalgamations of more countries. Wow, that's a big new, order of the world. That's weird. What a coinkydink. Aaron, I'm sure enough. You can trust whoever you want. Any evidence. Yeah, they're going to tell us the evidence. Give me a break. Okay. So let me get to the super chats now. If you want to be saved by politicians and by celebrities, keep waiting. Hold your breath. Okay. From CE, thank you for the super chat, CE. We have LYL episode 73 touches on taurine for skin issues, both internally and externally. Can you touch on this or show the study you referenced, hoping to heal gastritis / mucosa lining? Sinus / mucosa seems dry. Okay. Taurine is something that your liver uses to conjugate bile, which means it binds taurine to certain bile acids. Let me hold on. I'll go see if I can find it. Give me a second so I can use my full brain power to find the okay, hold on. I found it. I just gotta. I think I also have this in the okay, so let me do view slideshow. So I think this is on Twitter, but this is just going to be an easier way for me to show you. This is just some of the studies. So this paper, the biology. So I'm just going to run through these. The skin one I think is later. But what I'm going over in this study is I'm showing that vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist, and that everything that they call vitamin A deficiency in the research is either zinc deficiency, protein deficiency, or taurine deficiency. Taurine is only found in muscle meat. Regardless of what you read on the internet, they'll say that taurine is in eggs and dairy. I've been through the research. There's no taurine in anything other than muscle meat. And if you overcook your meat, you destroy the taurine. This is the whole Price Pottinger cat studies. They gave them cooked food. They destroyed all the taurine, and then the cats got taurine deficiency. So now it is required in all cat food to add that's cooked, right? They cook it. They have to add taurine to the food after they cook it, or else cats will get taurine deficiency diseases, especially in their eye. So this is just a paper about, night vision, as you see here, night vision is one of the supposed vitamin A deficiency diseases. Taurine is involved in the mechanisms preserving the structural and functional integrity of photoreceptor light receptor cells in the vertebrate. We have a vertebral column, retina. That's the retina of the eye. The supportive evidence comes from one, in vivo experiments, actual animals, right? In taurine deficient animals in which the structural and functional disturbances occur in the retina following a decrease in taurine retinal levels. That's not retinaldehyde, that's in the retina. Taurine affords protection, but it's the photoreceptor cells. That's your light receptor cells. So if they don't work, you get night blindness. Okay? So now let's go to the next one. Antioxidant and osmoprotecting activity of taurine in dry eye models. So down here I mentioned taurine prevents dry eye. So they were applying taurine and sodium hyaluronic acid bound to sodium on the eye surface, okay? They induced dry eye with atropine. And they gave topical treatment with these various things. They gave one formula with taurine. The other formulas were just the sodium hyaluronate. Okay. Results. Taurine significantly decreased reactive oxygen species production in SIRC, which is what is SIRC? I don't have that on there. Anyway, after oxidative stress, all the altered parameters were significantly reversed by 0.5% taurine plus 0.4% sodium hyaluronate treatment. Furthermore, this formulation was more effective than sodium hyaluronate alone. Taurine has a relative antioxidant effect in corneal epithelial cells and prevents the ocular surface damage elicited by atropine. Atropine caused dry eye. Okay, next one. This is the paper, Taurine, useful in skin diseases. Taurine is used in topical anti-acne therapy. It was used to explore anti-tumor promoting activity in a skin carcinogenesis. I'm assuming they meant to put the word study there. It is used in skin ulcers. Due to its antioxidant and anti-apoptotic properties, it exerts an anti-wrinkle effect on the skin. Taurine at 0.05 to 0.15 gram per day is effective in treating the underlying causes of psoriasis. Taurine binds to retinaldehyde. Retinaldehyde is the cause of your psoriasis and eczema. Taurine binds to aldehydes. I can show you that paper. Thiamine binds to aldehydes. Gosh, it's weird that we find all these things that bind to aldehydes, and then people get relief from them. It is, and psoriasis is, often reddish. Oh, wait, sorry, I wanted to go back. Okay. So as I put here, taurine positively affects the skin. Hold on, let me see if Joe sent me a message. Joe, I'll see about getting a link to it. I don't have the link right now. Wait, was that it? That's the skin study. Yeah. That's the skin study. Let me come out of the Joe. I'm going to stop sharing it. Hold on. Let me out of this. There we go. Okay. Let me go share. With the link, copy link. Okay. I just put the link in the link. This is an old PowerPoint that I made, or Google Slides, with all the references in there. Some of them may be to Sci-Hub papers that Sci-Hub sometimes makes links not exist anymore. So all those references are there. You can search for the title of the study. I can't believe when I get people who are too lazy and they say, but your link didn't work. And I'm like, but I put the title of the study right there. So you put it into Google. This is where like I can't fix stupid. I give you the name of the study and I put a link. So if the link is broken, you can copy and paste the words into the search engine. This work is not for everyone. And if their proof that they think I'm lying or I'm making up stuff is to say I'm too dumb and lazy to put the words of the title of the study in a search engine, I can't help them. Now, about taurine. Okay, some people who are very toxic in copper seem to get aggravated by taurine. Let me go find that. Let me go find that. Here we go. Joe, let me get the share. Vitamin A aldehyde. Taurine adducts. Adducts means they join together. They are added together. They are stuck together. Vitamin A aldehyde and taurine adducts function in photoreceptor cells. So without enough taurine, the photoreceptor cells would break down. Okay, so what is the taurine binding to? Oh, it's binding to vitamin A aldehyde, protecting the eye from retinaldehyde so that they don't get night blindness, which is supposedly a classic symptom of vitamin A toxicity. Let me put this link in there. Now, taurine. Taurine does conjugate bile, which means it binds to bile. This can make your bile recipe. Okay, like think about it this way. Taurine binds to bile. Okay. Think of it as kind of like, let's just say it's like salt. Taurine is like adding salt to a recipe. Okay? Let's say you have a savory meal and you add salt to it. Might it make it better? Yes. Let's say you're trying to make a sweet dish and you add a bunch of salt to it. Does it make it worse? Yes. So can taurine make your bile recipe better? Yes. Could it make your bile recipe worse? Yes, because just binding a taurine to a bile acid does not, some of them are less problematic, some of them are more problematic. This is why, so CE with taurine, you have to try it and see if you feel better on it and not just assume, right? We don't just want to assume because then you make an ass out of you and me. We don't just assume it's good for you. You try it, and like I said, with a lot of our ladies especially, they would try taurine, and it would stir up all their copper symptoms. And they're like, I can't take taurine. And I'm like, okay, well then don't take it. Some people are like, taurine's the greatest thing I've ever taken. Okay, take it. What we find over time is people don't need it over time so much or at all because we're fixing the overall bile recipe so that it's not as toxic. You have to remember, okay, so if your bile recipe is such that you take taurine at the start and it helps you feel better, this means your bile acid recipe sucked, to be blunt. You added taurine to it, it was a better recipe. You had less symptoms. Okay, so over time, as we do the things that we do, your bile is going to become less toxic. So let's say at the start, remember the example of salt, right? At the start, your recipe sucked because you didn't have enough salt in it. So then you added some more salt and the recipe was better. But then as you go on and you're learning how to cook better, and your recipes are improving, your ability to make the recipes are improving, over time, your recipe is now good. And then you keep adding salt to it and you make your recipe worse. So over time, what we see is that people don't need the taurine anymore because too much taurine can make a bile recipe worse, or bile acid composition if you're looking it up in the research. So just don't assume. You can try it. You can take the safe long-term dose of taurine in the literature is up to 3,000 milligrams, 3 grams a day. Does that mean everybody needs 3 grams? No. And Amelia who was one of the really celiac people that I talked about in the celiac episode. I believe it was her. She started taurine in the beginning and it really, really helped her. It didn't help her until she got up to like 2,000 milligrams a day. And then over time, she realized that she didn't need it and that it was making her worse, which is exactly the whole like things can turn on you concept that I teach here. This is why we want to know how they function and what they're doing in general, so we can say, well, you're probably not going to need this at some point. And then we're removing a supplement from people's stuff because it was just fixing a symptom. And we fixed the root cause, so they don't need the symptom fixer anymore. Hound Jogger, if you're talking about taurine, you can, if you're taking taurine, okay, this is an important thing. If you start taking a supplement, you want to start any new supplements by themselves. Like have a week at least where you're adding something to see how you feel. If you feel better, sure, you can keep it. You could try a little more, see if you feel a little better. If you feel nothing, that's fine too. You could try a little more, see if you feel something. If you feel worse on a low dose, then generally you're going to stop. Okay. Now, the other thing you can do is, let's say you've been taking something for a long time and you don't even know if it ever helped you or not because you just took it. A lot of people do this. I've been guilty of this in the past. You just took it and you just assumed it's a good thing, so I'm just going to keep taking it. This is what a lot of supplement junkies do, right? They just start on something because they read about it in Life Extension magazine or whatever, and they just take it forever, and then you ask them 2 years later, like, this is what I do with people, why are you taking that? And they're like, I'm not really sure. I've just been taking it for 2 years, and it seems to be fine. And I'm like, okay, your liver has to deal with all of that, whether it's good for you or not. So what we can do then is you stop taking it for a while, a week or two or a month, and you see if you feel worse without it. If you get to the end of that trial period and you're not sure if you feel better, if you feel worse without it, then sure, put it back in. If you're not sure if you feel better or worse, then you could try reintroducing it again and see if you feel better. So sometimes you have to go by the contrast of taking, if you're already on something, you take it out, see how you feel without it. And then if you're not sure, then you can put it back in and see how you feel when it's back in. So you're welcome. So just, yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter, they were like, well, I'm getting into this toxic bile theory, and so I'm just going to start taking glycine, and I think they might have said TUDCA. They're going to take TUDCA and glycine and taurine, and that was their solution to toxic bile theory. And I was like, you don't this is what people are going to do, folks. They're going to horribly misunderstand what we're doing here. And he just assumed that glycine and taurine, because they bind, sulfate binds to bile acids too. So you could just take a bunch of sulfate. Maybe that's why some people feel better with Epsom salts. Doesn't mean it's good for their detox. But sulfate binds to bile acids, taurine binds to bile acids, glycine binds to bile acids, and that actually changes. You can change a bile acid that's not so bad for you into one that's worse. You could change one that's bad for you into something better. But it's going to affect your entire bile recipe. It's like the salt in a recipe, right? That affects the whole recipe. It's only one ingredient, but it affects the whole thing. And then that was his solution. And I'm like, so you're adding bile and a bunch of conjugate amino acids, and this is what you think toxic bile theory is. I was like, good luck with that. This work is not for everyone. It does actually require understanding, which is why I explain things so much. Okay, but yeah, that's what I got, CE. So just, you can try it out. Go ahead and try it out. My mom seems to benefit from taurine. It's actually helped fix one of her eye problems. And I keep looking at taurine on the shelf, and I just kind of go, I took it for a while, and now I'm kind of like, I don't want it. I don't think it would do anything for me. But at one point, I think it helped. I think. But again, I didn't know, so then I stopped it, and I didn't feel any worse without it. So, okay, Fernando Espen, thank you for the super chat. He says, yo, Dr. G, I have given up coffee 9 days ago now, I think. Making so much more, you said, I think I'm making so much more bile. Any tips to soothe my my transition, or he says team to a decaf life. Well, you got to be careful, first of all, with decaf coffee. If you're doing decaf, just so you know, there's ways of making decaf coffee that are very toxic, very chemical based, and there are ways called like the water method or the Swiss method, which are just it's a water approach. So if you're doing decaf, you definitely want to okay, so let me just add. So here's one thing about taurine. Susan said, taurine is essential for me. Staying with 3 grams daily, needed extra after sun exposure last summer. What does sun exposure cause your skin to do, folks? Get red? What is redness an indicator of the skin in the skin of? Aldehydes. What does taurine bind to? Aldehydes. What does taurine bind to in the eye? Aldehydes. And what does she say here at the last thing? Night blindness was my problem, but now it's gone completely. Night blindness is an aldehyde problem. It's a retinaldehyde problem. You put in taurine, you can bind to it. I mean, night blindness is also a zinc deficiency symptom too. So it's not just taurine. But yeah. Thank you, Susan, for proving me right. Susan, I don't know. They actually, Susan was asking, she wanted to know what to watch out for in terms of excess of taurine. They don't really talk about this in the literature. I've if you read about the copper dumping symptoms, that's what some women get. Well, some people, but especially women. Women tend to have more copper toxicity. Some women get copper dumping symptoms. So the same symptoms as copper toxicity, it's just they're inducing them in themselves by dumping it out of storage. This was noted in the research that 3 grams a day was the known long-term safe dose. But they said that there was multiple studies that went significantly higher than that, 6 grams a day, 9 grams a day. So I don't know that taurine is a big issue if you take too much. It does have a sulfur in it. It's technically it's not a normal amino acid. It's a sulfonic amino acid. So it does have sulfur in it. So that's one reason why I don't just have everybody take it. It does have sulfur in it. But there's other sulfur containing amino acids. And then Susan said, after sun, my urine was irritable feeling unless taking taurine. What was probably in your pee then? Aldehydes. So yeah, so those are great observations, Susan. So back to Fernando's thing. Fernando, if you thought you were making too much bile, so usually people use coffee as a way of dumping bile. Oh, folks, I just want to say this about coffee, because a lot of people, the last thing they quit in the program is coffee. Coffee is very difficult. It's usually the last thing people quit. The first thing you want to do if you're going to quit coffee, the biggest mistake that people make with coffee is that they have it right when they wake up. You need to push the coffee back as late in the morning as possible, or even to the early afternoon if you can do that. The more you push it off in the morning, the less addictive it is to your day. So just don't have it like right when you wake. Don't walk out of your bed and go to the kitchen and start brewing it. That's the biggest thing that will get you hooked on it and find that you can't get off of it. So, yeah, okay. So if you're making more bile, I mean, the thing you could do is you could always have some charcoal with your bile. I mean, with your coffee or after your coffee. I wouldn't mix it in. But the thing is or you could have charcoal before it. You could do a charcoal sandwich, which is where you have some charcoal before the coffee and then after the coffee. Usually people rely on coffee to cause them to dump bile. And that's why people, they have their cup of coffee in the morning and then they poop. Because coffee is a bitter, and bitter things tend to cause bile to eject out of the gallbladder. It's not necessarily a good thing. It means so bitters causing a bile dump means that you took in a toxin, which the bitter taste is the indicator of. But yeah, I would just, giving up coffee, you have to decide how you want to give up coffee. I tend to tell people to wean off, and over a certain amount of time. I've quit coffee like 4 or 5 times in my life. And sometimes I used to do I would drop by a cup a week. So, if I was doing like 4 4 shots or 4 units of coffee or whatever, I would drop by 1 to go from 4. When I decided to drop, I just dropped to 3. And I do that for a week. And then I dropped to 2 for a week. And then I dropped to 1 for a week. And then I'd actually go down to like half a cup. And there was even a time when I was quitting where after the half a cup of coffee, I think I went down to green tea for a week. And then I quit again. But it's really just, Kelsey was telling me one of the authors she read or somebody she saw said that it takes like 6 weeks of being completely caffeine free to get it all out of your system and to get all the receptors back to the way that they are supposed to be. So part of it's just stay the course. Yeah. And then just push it back as late in the morning as you can. If you're trying to quit, you can wean. If you are dumping bile with it, I mean, the best way to do it, you could put sun fiber in your coffee substitute, whatever you're doing, to kind of help soak up something. You could have some fiber, oats for breakfast to kind of soak up the bile if you think you're dumping too much. Yeah, just generally, like if you're thinking you're dumping too much bile, you can try soaking it up. Doing the various things like soluble fiber things or charcoal. So, does that help? Okay. Jeez, wow. Hadley says, sadly, my grandma taught me how to do coffee very, very young at 4 years old. Lots of cream and sugar. Wow, that's like, that sounds like what Peters would do to their kids. They'd be like, here, have tons of sugar and cream and coffee as a youngster because it's good for you, because Ray Pete said so with his bad eyes and his yellow teeth. Anyway. Yeah, you can look for orzo. I mean, so if people are asking about barley coffee, I liked it at the start because I liked it as a coffee substitute at the start. It's kind of fading on me, but Worldwide Botanicals roasted barley on Amazon would be a good one to try to start out. So I don't have a link to it, just Worldwide Botanicals roasted barley, and just brew it like you would espresso or coffee. So, yeah. Okay. So that's all the super chats, right? Thank you guys for listening and not adding too many super chats. I appreciate that. I mean, I love the super chats. I can only be here so long. So, okay. I have a 3 p.m. appointment, which means I got to still go do Inner Circle before then. So anyway, okay. So let's go over, if you like this and you want to find more from me, our main website, nutritiondetective.com. That's where you can find our supplements. We have like 4 new things in process right now. And then once those are done, I'm going to start up a whole new round of other new things. So very exciting. Don't email Julie about it though. You'll know when they come out. Actually, Love Your Liver members, we always give Love Your Liver members the very first access to it. So if you're not a Love Your Liver member, you're going to have to wait a little longer for us to announce it on social media and all that stuff. But the Love Your Liver people get it announced inside the program first. So there's supplements there. There's our testing and consultation packages. We got myself and 3 other practitioners that you can work with. And like I said, if you work with one practitioner, you can go to the office hours of any of the other practitioners, including myself. So that's something that we do that's very different than everybody else. What else is there? If you wanted to find me on social media, and where I tend to be posting is Twitter under NutriDetect. If you want to find the Love Your Liver program and get the fire hose of information so you don't have to like listen to tons of, first of all, you can listen to all the live streams you want. Remember, subscribe and like and comment and all that stuff. Do that. And remember that YouTube likes you watching. That's what YouTube's all about, is you watching it so they can put more ads in front of your faces. If you notice, I actually don't, YouTube might run ads on my channel, but I don't do any ads during the show. Like I turn off ads on the YouTube thing because I'm not going to allow advertisers to dictate what I present or don't present. And I don't do the Twitter thing where you can get paid for tweets either. I don't know why people do that. Then they're just trying to get rage bait to get people to comment. It's like pathetic. Anyway, past live streams. Oh yeah. So if you go to the YouTube channel, you want to see past live streams and you don't want to just see the normal videos, go into the live tab. And then, I don't know, Joe, I don't know if you have the link. If you want to go find my old stuff, my old writings, my earliest writings on vitamin A toxicity and stuff, that is at nutritionrestored.com/blog-forum. And that's basically just me on a forum talking to the universe. It was not a forum where other people were commenting. Back then I just felt more comfortable posting on a forum format than I did writing blogs. So that's what I did. And there's like 500 posts there. So there's plenty of meat to chew on. So anyway, that's what I got. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We're all done with those. And then, Zen Dog did a super chat. Where's Ramon? I know Ramon's not here doing a super chat. That's pretty atypical, pretty abnormal. He is a very regular super chatter. So anyway, hope you all have a great day. I'm off to do the Inner Circle, the little private group where I can be a little more controversial in my answers inside the Love Your Liver network. That I didn't give that link. members.nutritiondetective.com. That is the Love Your Liver program. It's the Nutrition Detective Network and the Love Your Liver programs inside of it. So hope you all enjoyed it. You're welcome, Jackie. I'll see you tomorrow, Beth. And I will, y'all have a great week. Bye now.